All instincts can be manipulated. To sum up, the qualities that arouse the protective instinct are the opposite of those that attract us to a sex partner. Protector and protégé are outwardly alike. Sex partners are complementary opposites. Protégés are physically and mentally inferior to their protectors. Sex partners are physically and mentally equals. These three sets of qualities, opposite and mutually exclusive, of protégés and sex partners, determine the basic attitudes towards each, also opposite in nature and mutually exclusive. And yet we call these profoundly differing emotions by the same name, love. Love has become of necessity, then, the most dangerously misleading word in the language. To go back to our beginning, that difference of opinion between our hypothetical film producer and scriptwriter about the nature of true love. If the man truly loves his wife, said the writer, he will let her go to his rival without a struggle, because true love sets the beloved's happiness above one's own. He is right, too. If we are talking about altruistic love, caritas or charity, Christian love. And such a love can certainly exist between a man and his wife. But it has nothing whatsoever to do with the sexual love between a man and a woman. Selfless tolerance, self-sacrifice, an attitude of giving without expectation of a reward, all are part of the protector's orientation towards the protégé, regardless of sex. It is what thousands of Americans are feeling towards the orphans of Vietnam they are adopting. Our scriptwriter is confusing this with sexual love only because the protégé in his scenario is a woman, as indeed is often the case when men are moved to play the kind Samaritan. But why the confusion between altruism and sexual love? Why do most people consider altruism the important element in sexual love, and tend to look down upon the simple, natural, demanding, egalitarian sexual love as unworthy? Why the pangs of conscience when a man does not feel towards his sex partner what he feels towards a charity case _selfless, self-sacrificing, forbearing? And the shame, in the very act of making love, in the belief that this can't be real love? It is all so uncomplicated. As long as we follow our instincts, we have sex with our partners, we protect our children. But a man, unlike an animal, can see his instincts for what they are, i.e. he can take a detached view of himself and manipulate them for reasons that have nothing to do with biology. For such superior reasons, he is of course capable of making himself the guardian of inadequate protégés and coupling with inadequate sex partners, choosing to treat his sex partners as protégés and vice versa. When the love between a man and a woman becomes shot through with altruism, violence is being done to principles of nature. WHO is responsible. Who, that is, could possibly profit from such manipulations? And who has the power to make it stick? Who has power? If the sex instinct and the breeding instinct are indeed at the root of power, then there are three potential human power blocks. Children, objects of protection. They have power over their protectors, the men and women who care for them. Men, sex objects. They have power over those women who desire them, but not over children, though they can use force on children. Women, sex objects. They have power over the men who desire them, but not over children though they can rule children by force. According to this blueprint, there can be no absolute power of one human being over another. Men and women would control each other by means of the sex drive, and children would have some power over their parents as objects of the breeding instinct. But we have seen that a human being can subordinate his instincts to his reason. By manipulating his own instincts or those of others, a man or woman can acquire more biological power than is rightfully his. The most important possibilities for such manipulation are: A. Protégés can extend their power over their protectors by offering themselves as sex partners as well. B. Sex partners can extend their power over the other by becoming, in addition, protégés. C. Sex partners can extend their power over one another by controlling their own sex drive, so as to reduce the partner to a one-sided sexual dependence. Assuming that the struggle for power is a universal human trait, and that therefore each of these three power blocks will try to enlarge its sphere by manipulating the sex and breeding instincts. Which of the three, children, men, women, are most likely to succeed? Children can, theoretically, extend their power by becoming sex partners of their protectors. But this is hardly feasible, since sexual satisfaction depends on sexual maturity. Hence, children are biologically limited to controlling their protectors only by way of the breeding instinct. Men can, theoretically, expand their power by controlling their sex drive in such a way as to bring the female into a one-sided sexual dependence upon them. As they are usually superior to their partners both physically and intellectually, they can rarely appeal to the female protective instinct. Therefore, a man can have absolute power over a woman only in exceptional cases. Women can, theoretically, expand their power by controlling their own sex drive so as to reduce a man to one-sided sexual dependence upon them. Being usually inferior to their partners physically and intellectually, they can also appeal to the male protective instinct. They alone, therefore, are in a position to serve both as ward and sex partner, as inferior and polar complement, at the same time. Theirs is the only power block of the three that has what it takes to hold absolute power over another, the male. Given that all human beings seek power, it is absurd to assume that women could give it up of their own free will.